The Jorge Soler signing is officially official. He is a San Francisco Giant. Yet, we had been waiting for this signal from Farhan Zaidi that the Giants may be done spending, and we hadn't heard it yet. And unfortunately, we heard it after the signing of Soler. Was it a ploy or was it for real?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting Locked On Giants for coming up on 5 years, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And where we get started is by not jumping right into the fact that the Jorge Soler deal became official. It should never be such a scary thing waiting on a physical, but after the collective trauma we all endured last offseason with Carlos Correa, I think it's going to take a while to get over that. But what I more so want to discuss is, are the Giants done spending, essentially? And I've got some numbers to support that they very well may be. And it's not just numbers. We've got a direct quote from Farhan Zaidi, who was asked if the Giants were done. And let me just point out this is in the context of those 4 Scott Boras free agents. Arguably, not even arguably, definitely 4 of the top 10 free agents from this class are still unsigned. And so to say at this point for any team, yeah, we're done, is not what you want to hear if you're a fan of that team. And so here's what Farhan Zaidi had to say when asked, basically, are you guys done with significant additions? And what he said was, quote, and this is courtesy of Susan Slusser in the San Francisco Chronicle. It's a little bit more disruptive to add at this point. Anybody who's a free agent, we've theoretically had 3.5 months to figure out a deal. And if it hasn't happened yet, at some point organizationally, you just need to turn the page and focus on the players you have. You never rule anything out, whether it's now or May or June or whatever. But at this point, the calendar makes any further additions unlikely, end quote. And so I have mixed reactions to this because on the one hand, you want to just take it at total face value and you hear the words, any further additions unlikely, period. On the other hand, this is also something you might say. The part where he goes, theoretically, we've had 3.5 months. Theoretically, we've had 3.5 months to figure out a deal. And if it hasn't happened yet, at some point, you just need to turn the page and focus on what you have. So that is the kind of language you would use if you wanted a player, but just weren't able to come to an agreement with them, which is what's going on with these 4 free agents. They're not just oh, yeah, we forgot we're free agents, we should try to find a new team. They, when he says that, to me, it's a hint that they are trying, or they did at least try to, sign one of those players. We're talking about Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, one or more, whatever, of those players, and that obviously they weren't able to come to terms. And so I'm torn on this. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I think that, I mean, I've seen mixed reviews like on Twitter, just basically when I made some of these same comments, like some fans seem to still believe like, no, they're going to go out and get one of these guys. And some, are persistently pessimistic. But even if you're not a persistently pessimistic fan, you might just take this at face value and think that they're done. And one of the things that backs up the idea that maybe they are, and when I say done, I don't mean like no additions at all are possible. Like, I still think they haven't addressed some stuff that they flat out said they would address, and I would imagine gets addressed, which is like, I mean, they did trade for Otto Lopez, but like, is that really your best? Like, this is for like Marco Luciano insurance. Like, forget a Willy Adames trade, right? You've got Otto Lopez. Well, I mean, hopefully Luciano can take the job and run with it. Like, this is a guy who at times has been a top 10 prospect. They've talked about improving the infield defense, but right now they haven't changed the infield at all. It's Davis, like projection wise, Davis at third, Luciano at short, Estrada at second, Wade and Flores in a platoon at first. That's like what you're looking at. And so where's the improved left side specifically defense? Hasn't happened. So I kind of still expect that, but at the same time, we have heard this before where they kind of point out an area where they intend to get better and then they just don't do it. So that has happened. But going back to the point about are they done spending, I tweeted this out today. It's received 32,000 views. So a lot of people have seen it. And basically what I did was I said, here are the Giants' estimated payrolls per roster resource on Fangraphs since 2020. So in 2020, it was the COVID season. Salaries were prorated, and Buster Posey opted out. So I imagined that it was a normal year and there was no prorating of salaries, and that Posey didn't opt out because that's not normally something you're just allowed to do. It was just an exception that year. And their salary, or do I keep saying salary? Their payroll would have been $163 million. And then if we look at 2021, back to a normal year, what was their payroll? $162 million, $1 million different. In 2022, what was their payroll? $162 million, exactly the same number. In 2023, you saw this huge increase. And again, these are estimates per roster resource on Fangraphs. Different sites like have different numbers, and it's not, you have to pull them up to see why are they different. But this one is, to me, the best and most trustworthy. But in 2023, you see this increase to $196 million, which is like $30 million more. And you're like, wow, they, are spending more. But I keep pointing this out. I've probably said this more than 10 times on this show. Last year, all 30 teams received $30 million from the league because the league sold its remaining stake in BAMTech to Disney for $900 million. Divided by 30 teams equals $30 million apiece. So if you take that $196 million payroll, subtract 30, you're at 166. So once again, you're in the 160s. And then in 2024, with the addition of Soler, their current projection or estimate for payroll is $164 million. And so this is just a clear pattern at this point. And so if they, in fact, do not make any significant additions from here on out, then this to me is just like blatant and obvious that they're operating with that kind of break-even point at around $163 million. Period. Like, that's just what I'm seeing when I look at this. So coming up in just a minute, we'll wrap that up and also get into Soler, officially a Giant, and comments by Soler and by others about having him on this team and what he's going to bring and all that. So we will get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers Get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I'm over on the website right now. I'm actually looking at baseball odds. So they've got it all. The NBA obviously in all-star mode, and so a little pause on that. But, there was all-star game betting. Just place that $5 bet on the Warriors next time they're facing a weak opponent. And if that bet wins, you get $150 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, here we go. We are going to get into Jorge Soler officially becoming a San Francisco Giant, what he means, like how those negotiations went down. We've got some inside, information based on quotes that we're gathering from other people. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers coming up tomorrow. We've got a ton of mailbag questions left over, and so I do want to get to those. And also, hopefully, some movement on the free agent market is going to happen. Like at some point, these guys are going to sign. And I hope, just to continue that conversation, that I'm wrong. Not that I'm wrong. I haven't really said what I think because I'm not sure. But I hope that the trend is bucked and that they don't just, cap themselves on spending. And in effect, lessen their playoff odds, because I think that one of the last episodes I did was basically titled "They're a big piece or two away," and that means from being rising above, or at least putting yourself at the top of that scrum in the National League wildcard race. Versus, I don't think you're challenging for first place in the division, although you never know, as we learned in 2021, you never know what's going to happen in a baseball season. It can't, crazy things happen, and we saw that. But realistically, to put themselves in that 85, 86 win projection range, you're going to need to add some more. And for them to say that they're done at this point would be disappointing. And so hopefully, I still think Matt Chapman makes a lot of sense. I think Blake Snell makes a lot of sense. Their rotation is really unproven. Their left side, J.D. Davis kind of wore down as the season went on. Although you do want to give opportunities to young players like Casey Schmidt, David Villar, and oh, by the way, Pablo Sandoval is in Major League camp trying to make this team. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later on. That is a fact. He is in camp and trying to make this team and willing to go to the minors as well. Very, very interesting stuff. So let's get into Soler, though. The Giants did, in fact, Soler did, in fact, pass his physical. And apparently he's someone that they were pursuing ever since they traded away Mitch Haniger, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's almost the same deal that they gave to Haniger, minus the opt-out that Haniger had after 2 years. Haniger got 3 years, $42.5 million, I think, or $43 million. And Soler gets 3 years, $42 million. So they just basically turned, it's not like it was just a straight swap, but similar kind of, I think they hoped that Haniger would hit really well, and they're hoping that Soler is going to hit really well. And if you look at projections, Soler is far ahead of Haniger based on Soler having a really good season last year and Haniger having a really bad season last year. So according to Susan Slusser, and this is a quote, I guess I'm quoting Slusser is what I did here, but she says, Soler's preference was to play on the East Coast near his Miami home. So the Giants thought they weren't going to have much of a shot, but talks picked up pace the past few weeks. Infielders Wilmer Flores and Tyro Estrada friends with Soler, jumped on a Zoom call to help recruit him, which Bob Melvin called, quote, impactful. And then Slusser says, Soler said Sunday that though he doesn't know San Francisco well as a city, he was impressed when he heard about the team's chemistry. And so, for those who are excited about Jorge Soler, I know there are his naysayers. I kind of called him not a fit when initially asked about him way back in the beginning of the offseason, because I didn't think they would kind of want the lack of flexibility that comes with a dedicated DH. There's also the complicating factor of you already have Wilmer Flores, and this kind of takes at-bats away from him. But, at the same time, Wilmer Flores has never gone into a season with the Giants with like a clear, dedicated, this is your position, like you're going to play every day. And yet he does play pretty much every day when all is said and done. People get hurt. He can fill in at multiple positions, although he's not good defensively anywhere other than first, blah, blah, blah. But, Wilmer Flores, Tyro Estrada helping out, so props to them. And Logan Webb has done the same with other free agents, maybe not as successfully. I know he was there and involved with Judge and had dinner, and Crawford was there as well. But anyway, Jorge Soler, officially a member of the San Francisco Giants. And, there was a Instagram post the day before the signing became official, or maybe 2 days before, by his wife. And it showed, their kids, and the Giants had laid out a bunch of merchandise. It looked like they were in a nice hotel room, and the kids were like super excited putting on the merchandise, and they were talking in Spanish and saying like, "Are you ready for San Francisco?" And the kids were like jumping up and down, so excited. So that was really fun to see. Nice to see a player kind of want to be here, player and his family want to be here. You lured him away from an East Coast preference. And so that speaks to a good job recruiting a player that they targeted and wanted. And if you look at projections, across the board, offensively, we're looking at strong offensive projections to the point where pretty much every projection system is going to have him projected, I know I keep saying that word, to be their best hitter. And they vary a little bit. Like the low end has him about 10% above average. That's the low end of like 6 different projection systems up on Fangraphs. The high end has him 26% above average. And so somewhere in the middle, like this ATC projection system literally just averages a bunch of other projection systems, has him about 19% above average. So that is like about in the middle, which is not really surprising. So I'd kind of lean towards that's probably around what you should expect. Notably, every single one of these projection systems, except for Zips, has him hitting 30 homers, which would be the first time a Giant has hit 30 homers in a season since 2004, which you have heard a million times, and it's insane. I think that year Barry Bonds hit 45, and nobody's hit 30 since. Belt was on his way to doing it in 2021 before breaking his thumb, which then also caused him to miss that playoff series against the Dodgers, which was razor thin margins. And if you had Belt, who had a monster season that year, I honestly think they probably win that series if they have Belt. And so that's neither here nor there, but I just feel obligated to say that anytime it comes up. Anyway, Soler, he had 36 homers last year. He was mischaracterized by The Athletic. It wasn't Baggerly or Grant Brisbee. It was, I think, Jim Bowden, who was writing up this Soler acquisition signing, and they said that his plate discipline doesn't jive with the Giants' philosophies, which is just completely wrong. Jim Bowden seems to think Jorge Soler is just a hacker, a free swinger, but he's not. He's someone who's disciplined at the plate despite his power. Oftentimes you will see power hitters just kind of hacking, right? They're just think Javier Baez as the extreme example, where he's just trying to launch everything and has terrible plate discipline. That's not Soler. His walk rate is significantly better than average. His chase rate is better than average. And so when you combine, that's I think that's the Giants' offensive philosophy in a nutshell, is patience and power is what they want. I know that they're open-minded to different types of portfolios here with Jung-Hoo Lee. Like, Jung-Hoo Lee has patience and contact ability. And so that kind of diversifies the portfolio, so to speak. But I think they like this kind of player who can just launch the ball into orbit, but also is not going to chase outside the zone very often. So anyway, he figures to be their best offensive player, doesn't provide anything on defense if he's going to be a DH, and he should be a DH because the defense isn't good. Don't expect a super high batting average, but expect, a little bit above average on base and then just way above average power. That's kind of the profile in a nutshell. Also, not a lot of ground balls. Elevates the ball, hits the ball hard, hits barrels, which are just classified as good contact, like hard hit balls in the air at a high rate, like among the leaders in the league. And that's really one of the most important numbers these days. So anyway, with that said, coming up in just a minute, we're going to discuss the return, what a story it would be, right? If Pablo Sandoval, literally Pablo Sandoval, were to make the Giants, not necessarily even out of camp, but just at any point and contribute. He's in great shape. They signed him. This is not a Sergio Romo last year retirement kind of situation. This is Pablo Sandoval is really making an attempt to come back and play for the Giants. So we will get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, I've bought myself on eBay Motors, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, for me it was more style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, as promised, oh my goodness, the Kung Fu Panda, Pablo Sandoval himself in the flesh, is in the Giants clubhouse. No, this is not Barry Bonds visiting to mentor the players. No, this is not Sergio Romo signing a minor league deal to appear in the Oakland A's series and get 3 consecutive pitch clock violations or whatever it was, and then walk off the mound forever as a Giant. This is Pablo Sandoval making a legitimate comeback attempt, and it's obviously no risk to the Giants. It's unlikely to work. I mean, baseball is really hard as it is, and at this point in his career, I mean, Pablo has not played a game in the major leagues in quite a while, but he has kept playing the game. This is an interesting story, like, in contrast for me. This is kind of random, but there was this interview with Anthony Rendon of the Angels that kind of blew up this morning on Twitter, where basically he I've heard this before from Rendon, but he just doesn't really enjoy playing baseball, and he's on a $245 million contract, and he's been hurt constantly after they gave him that $245 million contract, and so it's just kind of a bad look when he says that. He basically said, like, yeah, this is just a job to me, and yeah, so think of that what you will. But for Sandoval, within this story by Alex Pavlovich, he's literally talking about he just loves the game so much that he wants to come back. He was playing in Dubai. He played in Mexico. in Dubai, I think this was in an Andrew Baggerly story. Sandoval became the first player ever to hit a 6-run homer. That's right, a 6-run homer, because they have these special rules where you can designate a guy in a specific at bat that if they hit a home run, it counts as double. And so he hit a 3-run homer, but they had designated it one of those special at bats, and it was a 6-run homer. So there he was, and there's video highlight of it, playing Pablo Sandoval in Dubai hitting a 6-run homer, and so it was like 2-2, and it became 8-2. So pretty crazy stuff. And within this story, again by Alex Pavlovich, he said Pablo Sandoval said, it's amazing. It's amazing. The time I was out, I missed it a lot. When you love baseball and the only thing you do is this, you're going to miss it when you're out. Yeah, when you love baseball. And so, and we could always see that he loved baseball. And it's just a stark contrast. I mean, on the one hand, you've got, I don't mean to look, Anthony Rendon can feel however he wants to feel, and he's so good at something that he's able to make huge money doing it. And so I kind of understand, yeah, do it. You're that good, and he's going to make like $38 million this year. But there he is, miserable, making $38 million. And here's Pablo Sandoval, who has made a bunch of money in his career, 37 and a half years old, and just for the love of the game and the love of the Giants, or more likely, like, no other team is realistically going to give him. I mean, maybe some team would, but of course it would be the Giants. Like, he's got to come back to the Giants. The last time he played, by the way, was 2021, when he was 34 at the time, and he really struggled with the Atlanta Braves. So he got a ring with the Braves because they won the World Series that year. So what is that? That's 4 World Series rings for Pablo Sandoval? Yeah. Jeez, that's a lot. So anyway, I mean, it's hard to envision how he makes the roster. It would probably take some combination of, oh my gosh, his skills are still there. Oh my gosh, he can still play the field, even though he's 37 and a half. Apparently he's in, like, I know this is cliche for spring training, the best shape of his life. But I've seen pictures. He's in really good condition. And, you know, there are plenty of players out there who are like 37 and still playing. I think of like Justin Turner, right? That guy's about the same age. Justin Turner, let's see. I bet you he's maybe even older. He's 39. Justin Turner is 39 years old, and he just signed a $13 million 1-year deal with Toronto. So Pablo's been out of the game, but he's in good shape and has been playing and embraces a challenge and truly wants to make the team, and said he's willing to go to the minor leagues. And so I think that it's just a fascinating little story here. And yeah, this is what he said, quote, "I came here to fight for a spot." And Farhan Zaidi was asked, like, why they signed Pablo Sandoval to a minor league deal, and his answer was funny, and I'm going to pull it up for you right here. His answer was, I actually can't find it. It was basically, I had to sign Sandoval. Here it is. "We had to sign Pablo because the workout videos he was sending me were taking up all the space on my phone." So Pablo advocating for himself. And he also said that he wants to mentor the young players like Luciano and Matos, who's a fellow Venezuelan, and Wilmer Flores, also a fellow Venezuelan. So I just think it's good vibes all the way around, and kind of a no-risk, kind of win-win situation for the Giants. I just wouldn't expect anything. But hey, crazier things have happened in life and in baseball. And so I know one thing. I and every other Giants fan on earth is pulling for the guy to have success and to have a comeback. I mean, it's not like he's 45 here. We're talking 37. It's not impossible. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Locked On, by the way, I think I forgot to mention this earlier, has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out tremendously, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who has done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow with the latest from spring training, mailbag questions to get to, all that kind of stuff. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.